Yeah, I'll always love that song, mostly because it was played as my wife and I got married. I think it's very special. I think it's very sweet. You know, the swimming sort of flowy chords, you know, has that vibe, doesn't it? You're listening to ABC Illawarra. My name's Jake Cupid. It's 10 to 10. It's time to catch up with our resident futurist and technologist, Matthew Dickerson, talking about a few trends in tech over the year of 2022. Hello, Matthew.
How you going? Scoring some brownie points there with your wife, I see. Good work.
Well, if she's listening, she doesn't always listen,
Surely not. Surely she
but
listens
yeah,
to every show you do, surely.
one would hope. One would hope. Anyway, let's kick off with the first trend. Google terms, most searched Google terms in the country for the 2022. What is on the top of the list?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? It gives you a bit of an insight into the Australian psyche, all the incredible things that have happened this year. Coming out of a pandemic, we've had floods, we've had various world events, and of course, number one, as you mentioned previously, Wordle. And it's not just Aussies that are fascinated with Wordle, it's the world. It was actually the number one searched item in the world, as well as being the number one in this nation. And I think part of that reason is, yes, there was a fascination with it. It actually went completely viral. But I think part of that is that most people didn't know how to access it. They didn't know the name of the website. So rather than go direct to the website, most people were just lazy and they'd type Wordle in Google and then they'd go to it from there. So that was number one. Australian Open, number two. World Cup, number three. Shane Warne, number four. Sport, and sport. We cannot get enough of sport. Ukraine, an incredibly important political process happening there in Ukraine and Russia, and that only made it to number five. So we cared more about what happened with the tennis than what happened over in Ukraine. And then it's just more sport. Novak Djokovic, the Ashes, Ash Barty. And then we got to Olivia Newton-John, one of our favourite daughters, obviously, in the nation, who passed away this year, and Betty White. So there's the top 10 for you in terms of overall. And I'm happy to break down maybe some top fives, if you'd like, on a few different specific categories, if you want, if we've got time to go through some of those.
Yeah, please, please. I was really interested in where is it here? We've already done sport. How to make DIY queries. That really caught my interest because a lot of them they're indoor activities. What does that say about where we were this year? Inside.
Well, that's right, and that's exactly right. And these have changed over the years as well. But the searches for how to make did go up over the last couple of years during the pandemic. So number one was how to make a paper popper. Number two, pom-poms. I didn't know pom-poms that popular, but number two was how to make a pom-pom. Number three, friendship bracelets. There must have been lots of people exchanging friendships bracelets by mail, I would assume. Number four, a ninja star. How to make a ninja star. I'm a bit worried about that one. Does that
Keeping
mean
the kids entertained, maybe.
well, maybe keep the kids entertained. I was more thinking about protecting yourself if the zombie apocalypse came and you had to defend yourself there. And number five was how to make a paper crane. So lots of paper origami, which didn't seem that trendy when I was at school, but maybe origami is coming back. Because even number six, paper flowers. So lots of paper products in there amongst all of those.
Number nine, papier mâché. That's another one, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And number 10, candles. How to make some candles at home. Again, that theme that you touched on there, that people were at home this year. The other one was the why is, and I find this, that people are asking these questions. So all the searches that started with why is blank. And number one, finally, we were a bit interested in politics. Why is Russia invading Ukraine? So good question. I don't really know the answer to that one myself. Why is plain yogurt good for females? That's the number two, why is.
Oh.
I didn't know that was a big issue. I haven't asked any females in my life whether that's a big issue for them at the moment. But why is petrol so expensive? Yep, makes sense. Why is lettuce so expensive, and why is there a lettuce shortage? So obviously the price and availability of our good old-fashioned lettuce was right up there in the top of people's minds as well.
Well, the classic iceberg. It's a staple of many household weekend salads or weeknight salads, I should say. It was surprising to see that. I think it got up to around $10 for a head of lettuce. That's outrageous.
Well, number 7 is why is crypto going down? So if you're looking for an investment strategy, it might have been changing your investments over from crypto to lettuce.
Well, okay. I'm not sure which industry is more exposed to risk, agriculture or cryptocurrency. I'm sure you can expand the future of crypto for us in a moment. But let's get on to something that's probably really beneficial for a lot of us over the summer period when we're having parties, we're gathering, we're enjoying the season and the weather. Smartphone tips to avoid tipsy texting. What have you got here for us?
I'm sure this doesn't apply to you and hopefully not to too many of your listeners, but there was that great movie years ago called The Internship, had Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, I think, was in it. And they had this funny scene where they did go out for a night and they did send off some inappropriate texts after a few too many drinks. And they came up with a light bulb moment of having some way of stopping you from doing that or testing whether or not you were able to put together a few words to basically not send off those inappropriate text messages. Well, the tech companies have heard that and they've actually built that into the operating system, whether you've got an iOS, so an Apple phone, or whether you've got an Android-powered phone, then you've got the features in there. If you've got an iOS phone, search for downtime. If you've got an Android phone, search for focus. And they do something similar. Rather than do not disturb, which obviously stops people from contacting you, downtime or focus stops you from communicating in both directions. It's initially designed so that you can just have a break from your phone, get a bit of a break from your communication device, but it also applies in terms of maybe going out. And the great part about it is you can schedule it. So New Year's Eve's coming along, you might schedule from, say, 9 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock the next morning to just give you downtime. And then if you do want to send a message off or post something on social media or receive some messages, you can actually go in and turn it off. But there's a few steps involved. And if you can't piece together those steps to turn it off, then maybe you shouldn't be trying to turn it off because maybe what you're about to send or post is not that appropriate. You can also buy some apps or get free apps or buy some apps. One's called App Block, APP Block. The other one's called Bacco, BACCO. And they give you an option to basically lock your phone out, and you've got to pass a small cognitive test before it will actually unlock the phone for you. Now, I've got some friends who wouldn't pass that test if they were sober, but the idea is that if you can't pass that cognitive test, then maybe you should just leave your phone down, keep enjoying your friends around you, and send off that really important text or that post on social media tomorrow morning. So a couple of things there. Again, I'm being very brief in my explanation, but there are tools out there that if you're prone to this sort of activity after a few drinks, then maybe have a look at these things before you go out.
Okay, now just finally, yesterday we spoke to Dr. Paul Mazzola from the University of Wollongong about the origin of cryptocurrency exchange platforms and how initially they were decentralized, getting away from the mainstream banking sector. But over years, they have gradually and slowly turned into quite centralized systems that look a lot like the banking sector. Crypto and FTX FTX has collapsed and crypto has seriously dropped in value over the year. What are you seeing about the future of the market across the holiday season?
And it is interesting. I don't give financial advice, obviously, but a lot of people ask me about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And the first bit of advice I say is if it's any indication, the amount of money I've spent on any cryptocurrency is zero. I don't have a lot of faith and confidence in the market forces and probably humans in terms of taking advantage of it, and we've seen that definitely with FTX. But the big advantage, of course, of all of these cryptocurrencies is they don't have a big, mean central bank or a government controlling them. But of course, the great weakness of all of them is they don't have a big, mean central bank or government controlling all of them. And that's the problem that we have there. But we've seen some dramatic, obviously you mentioned FTX there, the collapse there. You've got BlockFi, that's a crypto lender. They've declared bankruptcy. You see Bitcoin is at 2-year lows at the moment. We're seeing some of the major ones, BTC, ETH are both down 65% over the year. It really is a bit of a gamble with all of these. And unfortunately, you've got some people who have got ill intentions who create some of these exchanges, create some of these cryptocurrencies. Sometimes the cryptocurrencies don't even exist. They just publish reports to make it look like they exist. And there's one famous case where one particular woman took off with about $13 billion of investors' money. She didn't have a cryptocurrency. She made a pretty website, gave lots of wonderful talks, but didn't actually have a cryptocurrency behind all of that. And that's the big risk with all of these. You don't have any regulation. And people are calling it out for some form of regulation, and maybe that will happen, but then that defeats the whole purpose of cryptocurrencies.
Matthew, I'd love to talk to you longer, but we're just about to hit the news. Thanks so much for your time. I'll see you next year.
My pleasure. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. It's 10 o'clock, time for the news.